Hey everybody, thanks for joining Close to Death. I'm Selena Roan, of Fear Paranormal. I'm your host. Tonight we have a pretty cool guest on. I've been waiting to talk to Mr. Robert Murch for quite some time now. He is the expert and all-knowing of the Ouija board. Robert, can you say hi?
Hi, how are you doing? And thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, I'm doing good. Chip and I were talking about you last weekend. I hope your ears weren't burning too bad.
That wasn't the only thing that was burning, but thank you.
Ruh-roh. I was looking at your bio, and I'm kind of interested in knowing a little bit about exactly what got you started in your passion for the Ouija board. It looks as if maybe a movie called Witchboard did the trick. Can you tell us what exactly captured you on that?
So first, let me just say, being with Chip, there was clearly trouble and maybe potentially drinks going on, I would guess. I love Chip. He's a great guy, and so I hope you guys had fun. But yeah, a couple of things got me interested. You know, it's like everything else. I don't know. It wasn't one particular thing, but I was raised Orthodox Jew, which everyone who's looking at the photo that's up on Skype will say, geez, he doesn't really look like an Orthodox Jew. But I was raised that way. And in Orthodox religions, you know, ghosts, the paranormal, angels, all this stuff, that's all very real. So it's not a stretch to have any interest in it. It's kind of like everyone in the community does. So that kind of matched with a movie called Witchboard, which was an amazing B movie. It's probably the best B movie I've ever watched before. Your listeners, probably males, will remember Tawny Kitaen.
Yeah.
and her assets. The women listening will remember Patch from Days of Our Lives. So that was supposed to be their big movie breakout. It obviously didn't end up that way, but it did inspire me because Kevin Tenney, the writer, director, and producer of the first two Witchboard movies, basically patched together a bunch of histories that weren't necessarily true, but created what we think of as the Ouija story. And as I looked into it, I found out really quickly these things were not necessarily fact. And it set me off in a 20-year hunt to find out the real story, how talking boards really came about, and who made them, where did they start. But what actually got me collecting, which is another side to me, was that I went to school at UNH, and I roomed with three guys. So I was in a quad, and they wanted to rush for fraternity. And as I always say, I knew that if I rushed for fraternity, I wouldn't graduate. So I decided they could rush for fraternity and get in, and then I could go to the parties. And I could also still graduate because I would still do my work. So one of the things that was on their rushing for fraternity was a treasure hunt, and it was an old Ouija board, and I used to antique with my dad all the time. So I would come home on the weekends, and when I left UNH, I had 10 different Ouija boards, and my question was, isn't there only one Ouija board? And that just set me off. All those things together set me off to find the truth, and that has led me to different countries all over the United States, meeting hundreds of people, working with some amazing other collectors, researchers, Library of Congress, the National Archives, the White House. It has set me off in talking to people like yourself who have an interest in the paranormal. So the Ouija board is a wonderful doorway or gateway for me to have met a lot of people over the past 2 decades.
Yeah, Chip said if you want to know anything about Ouija boards, because I've been actually kind of nervous about them, and I think it's because of what I have seen on movies and the shows that you see that say you're opening up a portal to hell, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then you have the people that say, well, hell, you're doing the same exact thing when you're trying to get EVPs, and I have a hard time kind of understanding how that's the same thing, but then again, I've always been nervous about the Ouija board. That's why I wanted you to come on my show, because I need those fears eased. And Chip told me, stop freaking out about the Ouija board. It's another form of communication. And you could just as easily open up the portal of hell by just doing your investigation altogether. So kind of give me your thoughts on that.
Well, it's amazing to me to look back. So here we stand a year before, next year, the Ouija turns 125. So 125 years ago, next year, the Ouija board was named in Baltimore, Maryland. And so 125 years, the Ouija board and talking boards have outlasted a number of different tools that people use for spirit communication. And, another person you should have on your show clearly is Brandon Hodge. He collects all kinds of other spirit communication tools besides Ouija boards, some that predate it. And he can talk a lot about that kind of stuff. But, I think what people forget with Ouija boards or any of this stuff is that everything we use is just a tool. So just to start, a talking board is a surface that has letters and numbers, a couple of words, and it has a movable piece that will move freely when you touch it to point out those letters, numbers, and words to create communication. There's nothing mystical or magical about letters and numbers. We give this tool a lot of power, and it's possibly because of the entertainment world, the things we see, the things we hear. And you have to remember that Ouija has 125 years of history and urban legends and stories, and all that plays into why you think what you think. But what happened to me a long time ago, and this really did put it in perspective, when I first started speaking in the paranormal world, Jeff Belanger, who everybody knows, he's a wonderful, great guy, good friend.
Researcher, awesome.
Yeah, he's just the man, really. Like someone, I think I was on Tim Weisberg's Spooky South Coast last night, and he called him the Kevin Bacon of the paranormal world, and it's true. Jeff Belanger is everywhere.
Yes.
But he's a good friend, and he worked really hard to get me many years ago my first gig speaking in the paranormal world, and he convinced Amy Bruni from Ghost Hunters to let me come to a conference in Mount Washington and speak. And the Ouija board was so toxic and scary that I was only able to go up and speak and not even stay overnight, not bring any boards. It was just, it was amazing that I was allowed to even talk about them. And, it's neat to feel part of being invited on shows like this where people even want to hear about them, hear about the history. So it's been a huge change over the last 2 decades that people started realizing that the very people who are against Ouija boards, it's the same group that Ouija boards sprung from. So Ouija boards come from the spiritualist movement in the late 1800s. And some of the first people against the Ouija board were actually mediums. Sounds familiar, right? Same conversation we have today. Only let me put it into perspective. So what's happening is all of a sudden, these talking boards that have been around since 1886 in their current form, these people from Baltimore manufacture this idea. And William Fuld, becoming the father of the Ouija board, him and his family made Ouija boards from 1890 to 1966 when they sold it to Parker Brothers. So it becomes a mass manufactured thing, meaning millions are put into the homes of Americans.
Yes.
And so this is what changes things, that it's so easily accessible. So mediums immediately start getting upset. Now, you'll figure out why as I tell the story. So up until then, if you wanted to make contact with the other side, you had to hire a medium. You had to hire someone who was trained in it. You have to go to their place, have a seance. That cost money. This was someone's profession. Suddenly, for $1.25, you could have a mini seance in your house. How do you think that affected this profession? It hit the pocketbook pretty hard. And so some of the first things, and I have a lot of great articles on this, right off the bat from 1890, is mediums saying, this is dangerous, you don't know what you're doing, you're opening doors you can't close, you need me, someone who's experienced in this other world, to guide you through it. Now, same words we hear today, only the difference is the people who were saying it back then were saying it because they were losing money. And so the story of Ouija is often about the capitalist side of things, because the only numbers we have released that Hasbro's released, is that from 1967, the first full year that Parker Brothers made the Ouija board, till 2010, 13 million Ouija boards were made. So if 13 million Ouija boards were made between 1966 and 2010, imagine how many were made from 1890 to today.
Wow.
Just unfathomable. And so for people who are scared and think they're dangerous, now imagine how many of these things are out there and how few stories you've heard that are bad. And
that's true.
What people have to think about is, again, urban legends, we call them Ouija-sticians. They're just, we've all heard them. We've all heard, my best friend's cousin's next door neighbor's son used a Ouija board and went crazy.
Yeah.
But the truth is, it's not that it's not, look, I do want to say this. I'm not saying Ouija boards aren't dangerous. I actually completely agree with Lorraine Warren, who's your listeners know, groundbreaker.
Yes.
She's done some amazing research, and everyone should, whether you agree or disagree with her beliefs, definitely should be respected for her years of service in this area. She does not, though she hates Ouija boards, she does not believe that Ouija boards are any more dangerous than any other form of communication, because her and I agree on this. Communication is between you and something else. You and your subconscious, or you and another entity. Now, either way you do that, playing with your subconscious is not always a great idea. The reason why you can't remember everything you see is because your brain has a defense mechanism where it hides a lot of details. And so when you get hypnotized, those all get pulled out. But your brain couldn't function if you could see, hear, and smell everything that's happening all the time. You would not be able to filter it out.
Yeah, senses overload.
Exactly. Yes. So there's that. And when you start to take down the wall of your subconscious, people who don't have a strong, we'll say, constitution, or are not balanced, you're getting into a dangerous mental area. You can start, you start taking down walls that your brain's built up. Well, it doesn't always end well. But again, we're talking about a minority of people. The majority of people play this game and they get spooked and they stop playing. But you want to know about kind of like where I think about this. So I'm going to say we're on the phone. Today we're on Skype because technology is amazing. And we get into a fight and we call each other names and we say bad things to each other and we hang up. You're not going to throw out your iPhone and say, I will never have another iPhone in my house again. This happens with a Ouija board, and people do that with the board because they believe the board has done something bad. The board has opened the portal. The board is the portal. The truth is, and ask any medium or people who believe they're speaking to the other side, they are opening the portal within themselves. And so the board is just the tool. And this became very, very clear to me many years ago with Jeff Belanger when we were in, I think it was Cooperstown with the Ghost Hunters, and Hasbro had sent a few cases of boards to use, and it was a huge deal. It was just never happened before. Jason and Grant had long discussions with me about whether they would allow this, and in the end they did. And they were talking about why they felt it was so dangerous. And then after all this is over, we're part of the Ghost Hunter leading, and Jeff and I are sitting there talking, and then they're doing EVPs, and they take out their K2 meters, and they ask questions like, is there anybody here? Are there any messages for us? And Jeff looks at me and says, isn't this a Ouija board session? And so again, this comes back to Lorraine Warren's feeling that any act of conjuring is potentially dangerous.
True.
The ghost doesn't care how you do it or what you do. They don't have a preference. But once you call to make contact, you have invited something to talk to you. And so her feeling, and again, I do agree with this wholeheartedly, the Ouija board is just a tool. The difference is it's been around a long time, a lot longer than a K2 meter. And K2 meters that blink are not really scary. And I think, having been to hundreds, if not thousands, of different ghost hunts and investigations, people feel that technology makes them feel safer. So the fact that they can put down an EVP recorder or a K2 meter and walk way away and ask a question and it blinks 100 feet away, makes them feel safer than when they're touching a Ouija board and feeling it move. And
True.
so the difference with a Ouija board is that the feeling and the actions are all immediate. So with an EVP, so your listeners, I'm sure, are well versed with the Constantinos, who are amazing people. I love
we had them on a couple weeks ago, actually.
They're fantastic. They're awesome people, and they are kind of bar none the standard in their field of EVP research. So I've done worked many times with them. They're awesome. But what I've noticed happens, and that people are not afraid to ask a recorder these same questions, that they are afraid to ask the board. It's not immediate. You might not hear anything. You go through hours of asking questions, and then you have to listen to it, clean it up, and you find it. So it's exciting, but it's not instantaneous. Right. And with a K2 meter, you put it down, and a light blinking you is not very scary. But I remind people that if something can make a K2 meter blink without touching when you ask it to, I can't do that. So why do you feel okay? Couldn't the entity just pick up the K2 meter and hawk it at your head? Like, I don't, again, and I make this joke all the time that Casper the Friendly Ghost has never given me the rule book. Like, you can use a K2 meter, you can use an EVP recorder.
True.
But if you use a Ouija board, I got you. Like, I don't logically believe that. And I think, again, because the Ouija board has been around for so incredibly long, it scares people because older means realer to people, if that makes any sense.
It does. And I have a couple of questions in the chat room for you. One of them being, do you think that some people are just more easily possessed or affected by entities from the board, or is it just that they could be, I don't know, weak, and that's what they always go for?
Well, I think that people. So I'll change the question a bit, if the person who asked doesn't mind, to not just the board, but in general, like making contact. Are there some people who are more susceptible to influence of the paranormal? And yes, I think personally, again, this is just totally my belief, and I don't even think it matters, but my belief is that there are some people who are gifted, some people who are more gifted talking to their subconscious. They're more likely to be hypnotized. I think there are people who are more likely to talk to the other side, that they truly believe they have this gift. And just like people are more likely to play basketball, they just seem to have it, whereas I don't. So, or artists.
Yeah, Chip.
Yeah, like Chip. Chip was just born with this talent. Now he has exercised it and crafted it to become the medium and psychic that he is, but he had a stronger way about this than other people might. And so I do believe that. I also think that people don't take investigating as seriously as they should, though it's an incredibly fun thing. And so even though Ouija was always and sold in the beginning as a parlor game, a form of entertainment, anytime you're looking to delve into the unknown, whatever that is, again, psychology or paranormal, I think just like in all aspects of your life, you have to have a good attitude. You have to keep your head in a good space. You should not do this if you've had a bad day and you hate everyone, or if someone just, pissed you off and you got into a big fight. All of these things like attracts. And we all know in our daily life, our regular life, how emotions and interactions affect us. So someone is rude to you, it sets you off in a bad mood. So like negativity is contagious, and it with people, like live people. So again, I have no expertise on the other side, but I would guess things work similarly. And so asking a board or a K2 meter stupid questions, or asking things you don't want to know, like people, this gets into another area of what's scary about the Ouija board. So they ask the Ouija board when they're going to die and how they're going to die. And then it tells them, and they get scared and never want to do it. And you're like, well, wait a minute. I mean,
you already know the info now.
Yeah, you did ask the question. And I think, again, what happens, and different with the Ouija board than other tools, we blame the Ouija board so that we escape responsibility. We give the Ouija board, like, the Ouija board's bad, the Ouija board said this, the Ouija board did that. all again taking away from the fact that we are communicating with something else. You don't need a board. You can make it yourself. Early sitters who were looking at the paranormal back to, 1848 in Hydesville, New York, the Fox sisters, they were using knocks and raps. They did table tipping, table turning, table talking. All of these ways, again, are acts of communication. However, what makes the Ouija board different is we give the Ouija board a lot of power. So getting back to your original question, do I think that people are more susceptible? Yes, because I think some people are just more in tune with these things. Again, ideomotor response, psychology, as well as the paranormal. And I think people should be more aware and take it more seriously in the sense of we all will investigate this. Every human being is interested to know what happens after they die. You will play around with this in some way. The Ouija board is often people's first experience in the paranormal. It's just that you should put yourself in a place to not have a bad experience. It's like you shouldn't drink and drive because you have a higher likelihood of crashing. Right. And I think if you don't take this stuff seriously when you're experimenting with your subconscious or paranormal, you're going to crash. Like right. It's just the way it works. And so it has surprised me that it's not taken more seriously or more, not seriously, I guess is the right word, but there's not more thought put into it.
Right. How many different types of Ouija boards are there? And what do you think, first off, about the pink boards that are they're putting out now, targeted towards young girls? I mean, is that kind of a problem, or?
So we'll take it into two different things. So the first question, how many Ouija boards? So for your listeners, Ouija is a trademark, and it was trademarked in 1891. Started being used in 1890, and it was named. The board was named when asked what it wanted to be called in Baltimore, OUIJA. So that word is a trademark, a brand that is currently owned by Hasbro. Okay. We use the term generically, like we might say, "Can you pass a Kleenex?" But we really mean tissue, because Kleenex is a brand.
Right.
And so it's just so common. So talking boards are the term that encompass even Ouija. Ouija is one of the talking boards. There are hundreds and hundreds of talking boards. Because you can't use the name Ouija, though other people did when they shouldn't have, people would come up with other names like witch boards, or spirit boards, or magi boards, or you name it, fortune boards. They'll use it. And you asked another question about if they're targeted to young girls or children even. I'll add that to your question.
Right.
And so let me tell you something that changed. Ouija boards have always been marketed to kids, right from the beginning. However, they were also marketed to adults. It was a family game. So this will probably make your listeners cringe when you hear that back in 1890, family game night included playing with a Ouija board. And that's because life was different back then. And so as a historian, the biggest mistake you can make is investigating a topic without looking around to see what was happening. And so the Ouija board happens at an interesting time. It comes after the Civil War, a time when every American family was touched by massive death. So every family lost either their father, their son, their nephew, their uncle, you name it, someone. And remember, this is before the internet, this is before telephones, this is before a time when you can find out what happened to someone easily.
Yes,
so
true.
Lots of people left their homes to fight and never came back, just disappeared. And it's very, so similarly, we're all obsessed with this plane that can't be found. That there's 200 people that are missing.
Yeah, everybody keeps asking Chip where it is, and he's like, people.
And imagine wondering where millions of people went, just gone.
Yeah.
So also remember that kids, we live in a very sterile society with kids. Anything that happens to children is very taboo today. That's not how it used to be. Children were working by 8 or 9 years old at this time. They were small adults. They were not protected from death. No one was. And if you look back, you'll see a lot of photographs of brothers and sisters with their arm around their dead sibling before they died. They would dress them up, take pictures to remember them. This was never, this is very different than today, right? Because today, sometimes we don't even take people to funerals. Oh, they're too young. We don't want to do this. Back then, you would have 10 children and 3 of them might live.
Yes.
So the world is different then. So to talk to the other side was, why wouldn't you include your child? They know that death is all around them. So
Right.
what's happened isn't that the Ouija board has changed or is marketed any differently. We changed around the Ouija board. And so what you might find interesting, though, is for many, many years, since Parker Brothers took over 1966, up until last year, their tagline was, "It's just a game, isn't it?" And this last year, Hasbro came out with a new version of the Ouija board, and it's actually very cool. It has a black light in it. They totally redesigned it. It looks very different, works the same. But the first thing that happens when you open the box is it says, "Do not play the Ouija board if you believe it's just a game." So it's an interesting thing, like it's how it's marketed. But I think when people get upset that such a tool is marketed to kids, I mean, come on, you guys, like we all have to be very real and serious. How many sleepovers did we play Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board, or Bloody Mary?
Yeah.
You're all doing the same thing. This is no different. Children will naturally experiment with the unknown, just like us talking about it as adults. And do I think it's more dangerous? I think parents should be more comfortable with the unknown than they are. I think being afraid is good if it makes you careful, and it makes you have a plan. How are you going to do this? Not don't ever do it, because we all know that when you tell a child not to do something, it's the very first thing they're going to do.
No, no. I was such a better child than that. Just kidding.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't believe you.
Yeah. No, I was totally being a smartass. Yeah. The thing that, and now I have another kind of question. I had a friend of mine. Now, me being a little nervous about the Ouija board because I said I told you that before. This friend of mine that I just met he just lost his mother, and he had a Ouija board that was hers. And because I'm into the paranormal, he thought that I would, enjoy it. And as he's crying, giving it to me, I was nervous, scared, all kinds of things. Like, I don't know where this Ouija board or what it has been used to do, first off. So I brought it home and I set it in a box outside my house because I was so afraid to even take it in my home. Well, then 2 weeks later, he tells me, "Oh, by the way, did I tell you that I used that in a ritual and under a blood red moon or something like that?" And I'm like, "What?" So of course that set my heightened fear to a whole new level about, holy crap, what did he put into this? What is in this board? So what do you think about using it in rituals and things like that? Is that just like their kind of version of paranormal investigation, but with a little twist, or what?
I think people use all kinds of things. It's like people use guns for hunting, and they also use them for hunting people, which is really bad.
Right.
So I think, again, if you're of the belief that items can hold, record, or trap energy, this would be of concern to you. And so, people believe in cleansing rituals or ways to clear things like houses or objects.
Mm-hmm.
And, John Zaffis, right, he has and so does Lorraine Warren, have these museums of items that they believe have entities or negative influences trapped in them. But there are ways to clear them, again, if you believe that. And so, firstly, what you've done is you've already given that board special powers that it may not have had before.
Right.
Your belief is real. So I'm not saying, oh, this is silly. I'm saying the complete opposite. Your belief is very important to talking boards. If you believe they can be bad, they will be bad, something bad has happened, therefore it will continue with me, it will. So
Right.
If you don't believe that you can clear it, I would say don't use it. I mean, it's
Right.
pretty clear. I will tell you, if you believe something bad can happen and will happen, it will. It's just a law of nature. You will attract, again, whether it's your total subconscious or whether you are dealing with an entity. You are sending out the beacon of bad and fear. It's kind of like, they always say to you, like, if you're afraid of a dog, don't reach out and try to touch it. It smells your fear and it will bite you.
Right.
It's the same thing. So again, not answering the question of whether there are ghosts or whether there is paranormal, whether you believe this is a ghost or your subconscious, you're likely to have a bad experience. And that's where being responsible and thoughtful about stuff matters. You think something bad's going to happen, something bad does happen, stop playing.
Right.
The easiest way, there's a goodbye at the bottom of every board. And that's for a reason. It's just like you say on the phone, bye-bye, see you later, you're done. And closing portals, my belief is you're in control. You reached out to the entity, you started the conversation, you can end it. If you believe that's taking the board out of your house, getting rid of it, as a collector, I would say give me a call. I don't want to see any of them get thrown out or burned. I want them to come to my house. But, if you need to get them out of your house because you believe it, your life, your sanity, your well-being is the most important thing, period.
Right. Well, I mean, I just was nervous about actually that particular board because of what he said he did with it. I haven't really. I'm nervous about the Ouija board. I've never used one, and you were talking about Amy Bruni and how I just met her last weekend as well, and someone else asked at the Belvoir Winery event if they could bring in a Ouija board, and they were told no. They don't do that kind of stuff at the Belvoir Winery. They don't want that there. And I'm like, well, that's rather interesting. And then I told Amy and Adam, I said, I'm actually having the expert on Ouija boards on my show next weekend. And they knew exactly who I was talking about. And, Chip even told me when we were discussing it, I said, I'm so afraid of them. He goes, why? He goes, you put positive out, you get positive back. He said, you can't fear the unknown. Especially being a paranormal investigator, you have to kind of open yourself up, but you also protect yourself with, your faith.
Mm-hmm.
And dealing with anything, he said, like doing EVPs or, anything like that. To like Lorraine Warren says, conjure up the spirits. You're opening up a door, and you don't know who's going to walk through that door. He said it could be somebody posing as a little sweet little girl. But it's the same exact thing. And he goes, I've used Ouija boards before, and I'm not afraid of them. They're just a tool for communication. So Chip kind of calmed me down about being so afraid of it. I think I felt safer knowing that someone of his stature has used them before, and nothing negative has come to him. And like you said, there's millions of them out there, and you hear very few scary stories. So you being on here tonight has really helped me I'm actually breathing a little easier because, there are misconceptions about the Ouija board. And it is all Hollywood, I believe. A lot of it does have to do with Hollywood.
Some of it does, but there are some, again, the news today is no different other than it's 24/7, and we know things that are happening halfway around the globe instantaneously thanks to all the technology we have. But what hasn't changed is that amazing stories are what gets covered. So the Ouija board tells you where the ring is that you lost, does not make the papers. But a story in the 1930s, 1940s that reads such as, the Ouija board told me to kill my daddy, so I did, that's going to make the news. And so,
even though that was probably just an excuse and a cop out and a defense to be used.
Yeah, it could be, but again, there were many stories in the beginning that Ouija boards were bad. It just was not the general conception. It wasn't until 1973 that is a very large turning point when a small scene in The Exorcist, where Reagan is showing her mom that she's used the Ouija board, she's played it alone, and she talks to something called Captain Howdy, and then doesn't really work, but then later on she's possessed. And so it became, that really changed in the consciousness of America. It skipped right over ghosts went right into demonic possession.
Yeah.
So today, there's a huge belief of people who have been raised through and after 1973, The Exorcist, that Ouija boards are portals to demonic possession. And I'm not saying that can't happen. I just don't know enough about it. I just don't have any of the answers to tell you that it can't happen. I would say, there is a very funny line, and this clip is in my presentation, from Downton Abbey, where they ask, don't you believe in spirits and that they can talk to people? And the woman answers, I do, but I don't believe they play game boards. So I think you just have to take in your head that it is, again, I'm not saying they're not, I just want the audience to know, I'm not saying they're not dangerous. I think anything you're doing is potentially dangerous, and I don't think, personally, that anything is more or less dangerous. I think conjuring, reaching out to the unknown, asking for answers, having a conversation is potentially dangerous. Having said that, we deal with the unknown all the time. You go into people take trains to work, buses, they drive. You don't not talk to strangers. If you're sitting on the train, you say hello to the people who look at you and smile. You don't say, I don't know who they are, I'm not going to talk to them. Well, that person could be a psychopathic killer. But we do take the chance every day that the likelihood is they won't be. And, but again, they could. And so life goes on. And I think life is not clean. It's not sterile. It's not easy. It's not always fun. And all of those things we deal with in the regular world, we somehow want to make the paranormal easy, fun, laughable. It's just not the same thing, because we don't know what we're talking to. Again, the Ouija board's been around for 125 years. We still don't know what we're talking to. Scientists believe it's your subconscious. People who believe in spirits and demons believe it's that. Since humans understood when someone died, they went away, they've been trying to make contact with them. So this is nothing new, and it's an answer we still don't have. But just like anything, I think you have to take chances or risks. You just mitigate those risks by being careful. And again, if you believe your faith will protect you, saying a prayer, you should do that. If you believe, a ritual, cleansing, clearing, sage, any of those things, whatever you believe is going to help you, because this is all about belief. Right. Nothing happens. We all know this. Does anything ever happen to the people who are not believers? You never hear a non-believer living in a haunted house. It doesn't happen. Atheists don't have these experiences. Why? They turn it off.
Yeah.
And
they
so
block it out.
Right. Or they block it. They just are not accepting that stuff. It comes in and doesn't do anything. And I'm not saying, again, they could be very well right. I don't know. But I do know that belief makes everything possible. Exactly. So if you believe, you're going to be open to, if you believe something bad's going to happen, if you believe something good's going to happen, all of those things, it's like your mother told you, have a good attitude, good things happen to good people. And I do believe that. I think if people take more responsibility of their actions and their attitudes and their words, the world would be a better place. This from here and in the other world, in the next world. And that's just not taught enough. But in this realm, where you're dealing with what you really don't know, you can't see, you can't touch, I think it's incredibly prudent to be educated and to be careful. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I believe you should be afraid of the unknown. There is a natural fear. You can't get away from it. However, don't let the fear make you stupid. Don't let it make you make a dumb mistake. And don't let it don't let it control you. Right. Let the fear. Why do people climb Mount Everest? Why do they jump off buildings? They get addicted to the fear. Fear makes us want to overcome those things. So I would tell users they should try to harness it and make it a positive thing.
Right. And there's so many different kinds of Ouija boards, and we have a question in the chat room about, have they been made in other languages besides English? I know it's just like a blanket alphabet and numbers. So is it in another type? Is that like a foreign goodbye board that says like maybe in French or?
Yeah, yeah. So, today, talking boards in the form that we see them, that look just like the Ouija board today, that's an American invention. Of course, that could change with research. And by the way, it's incredibly humbling for you guys to call me the Ouija board expert. There are actually a lot of collectors, a lot of other people I depend on greatly for my research. So I am more of a I work with a lot of people and I put a lot of pieces together, but there's a lot of great other people out there who are collectors and researchers, and I'm very in debt to all of them. But it being an American invention in a sense. So, however, there is something called kokori, and that's a Japanese form where they use a lot of different characters. And kokori, in talking to that spirit, when you'd ask a question, is very ancient. And so that kind of, they merged it with the talking board-esque style. There are today lots of boards that are in French that say au revoir at the bottom. But, again, if you're dealing with a Romance language, Spanish, French, English, it's all going to be the same letters. You're just going to have yes and no be different and goodbye, unless, you have like Russian or, a language that doesn't use the same symbols. And yes, today those have been adapted by almost every society.
Wow.
The reason being, it's simple. Everyone can make this at home, which is why I think people think it's so dangerous, because it's A, so accessible to children in a toy store, and B, you don't have to go to the toy store. All you need to know is your alphabet. And so if you can read and write, you can use the Ouija board, and you can make one yourself.
Wow. So how many Ouija boards do you actually have in your collection?
Well, I have over 500 different talking boards, but that doesn't include variations of those boards,
Right.
as they would change over time, and it doesn't include duplicates of some boards that I have. So you're probably getting into the 1,000 area, but I don't just collect Ouija boards. In order to feel comfortable being called an expert, though I'm constantly learning and the story is always changing, you have to, especially as a historian, you have to look at other things. So I collect everything talking board related, articles, music, any way to track it through pop culture, because seeing how people saw the talking board in every decade helps me understand and tell the story better. So anything you can imagine, T-shirts. My house is a living, breathing museum to Ouija, a spirit communication tool.
I'm sure if you've got that many, that's craziness. I love collecting things, but mine are little bitty top things, not Ouija boards. But I was looking through and I saw that in '99 you filed for a trademark for cryptic.
Critique, that's right.
Critique. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about critique?
So, one of the things I learned from studying William Fold's masterful way that he marketed the Ouija board for all those years, which I will say we would not be talking about it had it not been for him and his family's understanding on how to market such a simple thing. I wanted to give it a try, and actually came up with the name with William Fold's granddaughter, Kathy Fold, and we decided to come up with our own talking board. And I lived in Salem, started a company with my husband, and we made Critique, a spirit board from Salem, Massachusetts. And it was a bit of an experiment. At the time, again, even the shops in Salem would not allow a Ouija board in it. The witches were very sensitive in Salem to witch boards. They just thought, it's very negative, we don't need any more negativity. Well, that changed when Critique started selling really well. Suddenly, the value of $1 got in the way of their kind of
Their thoughts
objections.
process.
Yeah, it's like, well, I don't like this, but I do want to, pay the rent. So, and Critique did really well. We beat the Ouija board. We gave the Ouija board a run for the money in some circles, like Spencer Gifts stopped selling the Ouija board for a time. We had Critique. We beat it in Newbury Comics. We were in ToysRUs.com. It got really, really big. And the reason being, we marketed toward exactly what people wanted. People wanted to believe that the Ouija board was old and that it was genuine. And so we really merged we called it a spirit board from Salem, Massachusetts, because we knew that's what people wanted. And so we used the imagery from the graveyards and all the old, again, anyone who's been to Salem or New England, you're going back to the oldest parts of European America. So the graveyards are incredibly old, and the artwork is beautiful and amazing. And we integrated all of that into the board. And so, it was a fun time. So I have not only experience in researching and collecting, but also taking a run at manufacturing.
Well, that was pretty cool. I did see that you also worked as a consultant for Hasbro, and also on a lot of shows and movies. I was like, wow, I've watched that, and I've watched that.
Yeah,
I was going through the list. That was crazy.
I've been lucky.
Yeah.
So people think the Ouija board is bad. It has been nothing but amazing for me. I've met, again, amazing people. I'm on your show. Nothing bad has ever happened in my house. The scariest things in my house are the people who live in it, not the things that are here. And I've been lucky enough. Hasbro is a wonderful company. They have been incredibly open over the years to working with me. This is a company that makes lots of things.
Yes.
They make, obviously, the bottom line is incredibly important to them. Why do they take time to talk to this crazy collector who wants to know everything about talking boards? I have no idea. They're great, though. I appreciate their entertaining me over these years and letting me go through their archives. And I got to talk to them a little bit about their new board. Before it came out, I consulted with Winning Moves, who currently makes Ouija Classic, the throwback version that people seem to really, really love. I have consulted on lots of TV shows and movies, and was just featured in a Smithsonian article that they did in their magazine last October. So Ouija has been wonderful for me. And, again, I think being open-minded and educated and thoughtful has done well for me.
Yeah, and which it has, obviously, because you have met some really awesome people. And that's the thing that paranormal has done for me as well. I have been blessed beyond words with, just the friendship that I have, like I said, with Chip. He kind of mentors me a little bit, and kind of making me aware of actually all the realm of paranormal, not just hunting ghosts, but there's so much more to the paranormal than just that. Yeah. And I was wanting to know which one of the projects that you actually were working on, like movies, shows, whatever, which one was the most intriguing to you?
Oh, that's so hard. Oh,
Good question.
They're all so different, and they've all presented different opportunities. I was with my friend Danielle this weekend here in Montreal while we were up here, and she comes with me to a lot of these things, as best friends often do. You drag them to these crazy things. And we did many years ago, I don't remember what year, but I want to say it was season 3 of Paranormal State. Room and Board was a spirit board episode. So I got to meet the cast of Paranormal State and talk to them. That was really neat because the place was so far away near Fort Ticonderoga up in upstate New York, and there were just a variety of weird things that were happening, having nothing to do with paranormal. Just trips always take a kind of a life of their own. And so I don't know, working with the Ghost Hunters has been amazing. I love the Ghost Adventurer crew. Those guys, Nick in particular is just such a great guy, a friend, and just someone who's honest. I think the paranormal world is really lucky to have so many good people and well thought out and sharing their experiences in it. So much more lucky than any other area. By day, I work in the financial world, which often makes people laugh. And no, the Ouija board has not picked any good stocks for me, and it certainly has not given me the lottery numbers. I wish it did. But I've never seen a community as much as there is a lot of infighting or jealousy or politics. It's still nothing like any other part. So I think people should feel very blessed to have so many good people and entertaining people. And again, you mentioned Chip. I consider him a very good friend. I think he mentors all of us on how to be professionals and good people in a field that has always been wrought with fraud. You know, as much as they're really good people, there are people trying to pull the wool over their eyes. So
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, again, coming back to the question, what project do I like best? I love them all, and I love the next project. You know, again, Ouija board is turning 125. I founded the Talking Board Historical Society, and I am working. That group is working with the city of Baltimore to celebrate its naming next year. So hopefully, I'm going to see all you and your listeners there. There's going to be some killer parties. We're going to do a Guinness Book of World Records, trying to see how many people we can get playing the Ouija board at the same time. There's going to be some seances. Lots of people who you all know and we've talked about will be there doing their thing. So I love everything I've done, but I always love the next project even more.
Yeah, it is exciting, and that, you know, when you're mentioning the Ghost Hunters and Zach and Aaron and them, I haven't yet met Zach and Aaron and Nick, but I did get to hang with the Ghost Hunters last weekend, and that was pretty incredible. That was a lot of fun with Chip and Greta, and we had a great time. And we did discuss a little bit of the Ouija board, and we discussed a couple of other things while we were sitting there. And those people are really good at what they do. You know, I'm not going to name any names, but some people can be a little over dramatic at times, and it's all for TV, and I understand that. But I like learning new things from them, and you know, I do watch most all of them because you learn a little something from almost every show that you watch that has paranormal, something that, oh wow, I need to try that, or you know, that's a great experiment. I think now, after having talked to you, I feel a little bit more at ease about the Ouija board, and I appreciate you being on my show tonight.
Thanks for asking me.
For a long time. I will have to have you back, though, because there's so much more to talk about.
I'd love it.
Yeah. So, and I do hope I get to meet you soon, because Chip does talk highly of you. So, more than likely, one of these times when I'm with Chip, I'll probably get to run into you.
Well, you know, for your listeners, I'm going to be at Phenomenology, or Phenomicon, I think it's called, this year in Gettysburg. So,
oh, okay.
You know, so if people are going to be there, I'm going to be there. I know Chip is going to be there. Some of my very good friends that I only get to see once a year are going to be there. Phenomicon with Dana Wingard is always fun. And so you asked me what was one of my favorite things. Phenomicon is always one of my favorite things, just because, again, I get to see people I don't get to see all year long. You know, I get to email and call, but I with everyone's filming schedules or just the projects they're doing or their day jobs, I don't get to see them. And so Gettysburg is always fun to get a bunch of people together who don't get to see each other much. And another thing I really like about that the paranormal conferences seem to all be following the lead here is that you'll notice that what are considered the stars or the TV people just spend a lot of time with the regular everybody's. So it's everyone investigating. It's not like them and us. It's just we're all a big group, all trying to do the same thing and share expertise and learning from each other. And so I would tell everyone who hasn't bought a ticket that Gettysburg is a very fun event, and you know, they should try to come if they can.
Well, I appreciate that, and I wish to God maybe next year I'll have the money to come up there, but I would love to join you guys. Thank you so much for being on my show.
Thank you for having me.
And we will talk again soon.
Absolutely, anytime. Happy to do it.
Have a great evening, okay?
You too. Take it easy.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, that was Robert Murch. Now, if you didn't learn anything from him being on, you weren't paying much attention. I want to thank him for being on my show. And now we have a couple of announcements. We have some events coming up. This Saturday, Fear will be in Little Rock, Arkansas with Mr. Chip Coffee, helping him with his Coffee Talk event. Then April 12th, Penn, along with Fear, is going to be also at History, Haunts, and Legends, which is in Jefferson, Texas. That is going to be a very cool event. I already know that because Jody always does a bang-up job. Tyler Paracon is April 26th, and the Deep South Paranormal guys are going to be there as well. So Randy and Kevin, and they are great guys. Actually, Kevin's a friend of mine, so he's pretty cool. Then there's Granbury Paranormal Expo, which is May 17th. And then I will be in New Orleans with Kevin Betzer and Chris Melancon. And we are going to be, and actually a couple of other guys from the Deep South Paranormal are going to be investigating the Andrew Jackson Hotel, which has never been investigated before. And so that concludes the events. And now I'd like to thank my sponsors, Syntex Roof Systems. They're all over it. Then I got Flanagan's Party Barn and Able Towing. And next week I will have Miss Alyssa Onyx on my show. You will definitely want to tune in for that. It's going to be very interesting conversation. She's always a great guest. So thank you, and I appreciate y'all tuning in. Peace out.